Week of Mourning. It's a week where we grieve for the people lost during the Craccian Meltdown. A week to remember all those that died during Athea's reign. This is the week where Kajios remember all their mistakes and punish themselves for making them. The first day is the Meltdown morning. It is the day where we all grieve for the thousands of people lost when Craccia's ice dome collapsed. Every household in Kajios is to close and lock their doors, close their windows, and close their curtains. All electricity is shut down, but it's okay to have candles and lanterns, things like that. In the night, workers will place a single block of ice on each person's doorstep. No one can leave the house until the ice has completely melted. The Craccian Meltdown itself was an impressive, gruesome feat. I remember the day it happened. We were at the Craccian castle, where the Kajios were currently living. We used to travel between Craccia and Ratio, since Athleo was the leader of Ratio, and Crystal the leader of Craccia. Craccia was a beautiful place, known as the land of green ice. Stretched over it was a mile-thick dome of ice. Surprisingly, Craccia wasn't cold all year round. Instead, green, lush grass covered the gentle rolling hills. There were many pseudo-suns along the top that would fade and brighten depending on the time of day outside. It was a gorgeous, peaceful place. I remember the first explosion. I was outside, sitting in the grass, the castle in the distance. Lily was playing on a rock nearby. Kaio was sitting in my lap, fending Juko off, who kept trying to jump on her and pull her hair. Athea sat beside me. I remember the peaceful look on her face. It makes me sick to think that she could have such a look on her face when she knew exactly what was going to happen. The first explosion happened in front of us. It was terrifying. I knew Kajios could explode, but never anything that big. Black smoke began billowing out, and a deafening crack battered our ears. Lily hid underneath her rock, and I handed Juko to Athea and told her to run. She did, and Kaio followed her. I ran for Lily. Chunks of ice began to fall. I remember seeing Joven a ways away, looking around for Shamer. I remember feeling myself freeze up when I saw the giant block of ice falling straight towards Lily. I kept running, though. I don't know why I kept running. I knew she was dead. I could see blood spilling out over the rocks, but I kept running towards her. I remember slamming my fists on the ice, trying to push it off. I remember screaming and tears blurring my vision. I remember hearing another explosion, which knocked me out of it and made me look towards Joven. He was running for Shamer as more ice fell. Her foot was stuck in a tree root. I saw the ice wall falling, and I ran for Joven. He was going to be crushed. Shamer would be crushed no matter what either of us did, but I wasn't going to let Joven be killed with her. I grabbed him and pulled him away. The ice wall crashed down in front of us, and shards of ice flew everywhere. I remember falling back and feeling cuts all over my body. Joven grabbed me. He was so angry. I remember smelling his blood, seeing it pouring out of his stomach. He punched me and screamed at me. I couldn't blame him. He had just seen his daughter die. He ran without me back towards the castle, probably to find secret. I struggled to my feet and followed him. Ice was everywhere. Ice, ice, ice. Blood ran on the ground from the bodies that had been crushed. The bottom of the ice was stained pink. Smell choked my senses, made me unable to breathe. I collapsed. It was too much. I couldn't handle it all. I was still processing the fact that Lily was dead. My little girl. She was barely 4 years old. Someone picked me up. I don't know who it was. To this day, I still don't know. It wasn't a scent I recognized, but I suppose it could have been. I couldn't smell anything but blood and smoke. All I could hear was more explosions, more cracking as the ice began to fall. I think I passed out at some point. Everything was really blurry for a while. Eventually the smell of blood went away. Eventually I woke up, and I found myself lying in my bed in the Craccian castle. Mom told me that Aliador was dead, and Arain, my little sister for Thane, Arain's twin, was traumatized to the point of being catatonic. Apparently they had been running. She had seen Arain's head crushed by a block of ice. She hadn't responded for 3 days, which was also apparently as long as I was out. Thea came to see me with Kaio and Juko. At the time, I remember I was glad to see her. I was glad she was okay, and that our kids were okay. Now, I just feel disgusted at myself. Now I just wish she had died with the rest of them. I wish she had been crushed in her own doing. She had introduced our world to man-made explosives. Explosives that had literally made the sky fall. The next 5 years were spent trying to recover. I couldn't go back there, but Dad said that he would look for Lily for me. Instead of my little girl, he brought back a rock. He told me she was there. I remember getting so angry that he would tell me something so stupid. My Lily and a rock. I yelled at him, told him to get out. He told me just to trust him before he left. It took me a day or two before I finally drove myself mad enough to actually believe him. I took the rock and I sat alone in my room, and I just stared at it. I stared and stared for hours. I was about to give up on it. I was mad again, frustrated. I was crying. Then the rock moved all by itself. It moved towards me and I could only stare. My Lily's soul had taken over the rock. I kept her. What else could I do? She loved sitting in the dark and playing with rocks, even when she was 4. So I put her somewhere safe, somewhere where she could be happy. I still visit her sometimes. I miss her, and sometimes I wish that she hadn't been trapped in that rock. The week of mourning. After the meltdown mourning, there's 5 days of grieving. On the 6th day, the Kujikais gather on Main Street. Not all the Kujikais, mind you. We couldn't leave Cassiel completely unprotected. The warriors were the ones that took care of Cassiel while the big boys were gone. Though, there were so few of us now. Aquino didn't go because he refused to. Athleo tried every time we left to get him to go, but he refused to walk in his sister's steps, even if it was her last march. The freezing march is to commemorate the day that everyone from the castle escorted Athea through the colonies into the very tippy top of Ratio. I remember riding at the back. My hands felt so heavy that I couldn't even hold the reins up properly. Mom rode beside me. I could see the back of Athea's head the whole way there. All I could do for the entire trip was stare at her. I kept on trying to open my mouth and ask her why. I couldn't do it though. My lips wouldn't open for her. I still loved her. I didn't understand how I could love someone that had tried to kill me. But I guess that's why it still hurts so much to look at her. I loved her. No one spoke a word the whole way. Once we reached the ice wall, I felt myself choking up. because I knew what was coming next. Instead of just putting Athea in the ice wall like I thought we were going to do, Athleo took the lead and he used his powers to weave around the ice walls and clear out a spot where Athea would spend forever. For someone facing her death, she looked oddly satisfied. She didn't look scared or angry or upset. She just looked satisfied. The ice wall, now a maze with us at the center, was tall over our heads. I remember how cold and small I felt all of a sudden, with the frozen cliffs hovering over our heads. I felt like they would fall, we would all be crushed. Once we had all gathered, we dismounted. Crystal pushed Athea towards the 10-foot-high glacier that was there. Athleo took over from there. He took her by the arm, like an angry father about to throw his daughter into her room after having done something horrible. Then, Thea started talking. "What about unconditional love?" she asked, mocking him. "You told me that I would always be your little girl, Daddy. You told me you would protect me no matter what." I couldn't even bear to look at the expression on Athleo's face. He had never looked so sick before, so pained. "I will always love you," Athleo answered her. "But I will not protect my daughter if she is hurting the others that I love and protect. I cannot put you over everyone else this time." Then she asked a question that made us all freeze in our boots. "Would you really sentence your own daughter to death?" At that point, my hurt for her changed. It turned from hurt to hate. I wanted to hit her. I wanted to bite her. I wanted to take my shadows and strangle her tiny little neck until it snapped. I wanted her to hurt like she had hurt me. I wanted to kill her. I blacked out. I woke up with blood on my mouth and hands, and Joven holding me down. Everyone was on the opposite side of the clearing, watching me. Thea stared at me with a triumphant look on her face. At first I thought it was her blood, and I felt a surge of satisfaction. Maybe I had hurt her. Maybe I had gotten hold of her. Then I saw the bite on Joven's shoulder, and the claw marks over his chest and arms, and I knew he had stopped me from doing something stupid once more. Sometimes I wonder if something was wrong with me back then. I wonder to myself, how could I have gotten so upset over her? She had killed all 3 of our kids. She had killed countless others through the wicked. I slept in bed beside her each night, without knowing, without even suspecting. The thought terrified me. Thea, the weakest of us all, the sick girl, the girl with one arm, the girl with no powers, could rise up to this height without anyone noticing. What could the rest of us do? I remember crying. I remember hearing Athea laughing. "I told you I'd never leave Kajios." She was screaming at me, and she wouldn't stop. She kept on screaming and screaming and screaming. It was driving me insane. Joven grabbed me by the arms and pulled me away from it all. He pulled me back through the maze, but we couldn't escape the crazed laughter. He sat me down and pulled me to his chest and covered my ears, and he hummed. The vibrations drowned out the laughter. By the time he had pulled away from me, all had gone deathly silent. I remember him pulling me to my feet and starting to leave the maze, but I stopped him. I want to see her, I told him.
No, you don't.
He argued. I didn't listen to him. Stupidly, I didn't listen. I managed to get my wrist out of his grasp and run back the way we had come. They had put her in the glacier. You could see her faintly through the ice. She had her eyes closed and she looked like she was sleeping. Athleo sat in the corner, his face in his hands, Iggy's arms around him. I went over to the glacier. I was hesitant, almost scared. I was only 2 feet away from her, the closest I had been since she had stabbed me. I stared at her. I don't remember feeling anything. I just remember staring. Nothing was going through my head at the time. No emotions, no thoughts, no memories. Nothing. I could only stare at her. As I was staring, her eyes suddenly shot open. I remember feeling such shock that my heart skipped several beats. I blacked out again. I woke up in my room at the castle. Mom told me I had fainted. It felt strange to sleep alone again. I hadn't for so long. I had always had someone to talk to. Thea, Kaio, Juko, Lily. All 4 of them had been my family, and now, suddenly, I had no one. I was just alone. The freezing march happens once every 100 years. We ride down that same path we took to put her in her icy coffin. We sit by that glacier. She's no longer in it. She escaped after Johnny reappeared, told me that I was his father, and that she had hidden him from me. He told me that she had been breeding me, like an animal. I hadn't mattered to her. She only wanted my powers and my vampirism. Johnny let her out. I remember that day too, but that's a story for a different time. I felt like I needed to explain it to you at some point. There are a lot of stories I have to tell you. Some are little, and they don't matter much, and some affected more than just me. I've lived a long, long time, and I have a lot of stories to tell. Some of them, I admit, I won't tell you. I'm sorry, but I just can't. I'm still not ready. But I'm getting better. You're making me better. So I will, one day, tell you all my stories. Some you'll remember and some will slip away to the back of your mind. I don't want you to pity me. I just want you to love me. Because I love you a lot, Eden.